Friends, it's day 25, and if you're just clicking on this video, then welcome. This is what I look like. I was looking at the camera and looking away, and I realized that if I do this, almost looks like I have a kind of bone structure here, but today's a rest day. We're chilling. And I woke up this morning, and I was thinking about things I could talk about today, and I remembered a very funny, dear God, I really gotta, all right. I remember a very funny story, a true story. I did, in fact, go to a fat camp for I want to say it was like 4 weeks when I was like 13. I don't remember the exact circumstances actually. Like, just for the record, like, it was not like I wasn't a kid that went on field trips. You know what I mean? I didn't go to extracurricular activities. I didn't go to sleepaway camp. That was not something that was in the financial grasp of the people around me who are caring for me. So I want to say I like won something, or I got like a free trial, and then my dad was like, okay, it worked a little bit, so you could stay for a few weeks, and I went for like a few weeks. It was not as much like the movies that you may want, but also it actually kind of was. I mean, there was a sort of there was infighting going on in the camp, and the counselors were sort of at war with one another due to the nutritionists of the camp disagreeing with the way the camp was operated in terms of how they handled calories and eating, which obviously in a fat camp is how they get the kids to lose weight. And I met a guy that was a counselor there, and he was one of the main counselors, and his name was John. I remember his name. He was like a big Samoan guy, and he would sell cheeseburgers to kids, McDonald's cheeseburgers to kids. That's real. It's the it's the funniest thing that could ever. The funniest premise you could ever think of is a guy selling food to a fat kid. That's absolutely hilarious. And the reason I bring up that there was infighting is because I remember the argument was like it was altruistic to some extent, which I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of room for debate there. It wasn't altruistic. But the whole thing was everyone ate the same amount of calories. I'm going to refocus myself. Everyone ate the exact same amount of calories, even if they were 4'10" and 200 pounds, or if they were 6'1" and 290. Like, it was exactly the same amount. Hawaiian shirt on, by the way, means it's a rest day. It means we're chilling. It means that you need to kick back and listen to what happens when you're fat and nobody's paying it, and too many people are doing too many things at the same time. The guy was like, so there was infighting in relationship specifically to the food. I would imagine we were eating something like, bro, my head. I would imagine, I have to just minimize this. I would imagine we were eating something like 1,000 to 1,500 calories a day. Now, obviously, if you're like a 290-pound kid or a 200-pound kid, it's more than likely that your home environment is more than 50% of the cause. 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, they can order a pizza, right? But are they really like dictating what's happening food-wise? Which isn't to say the parents are entirely to blame, but at a certain age, the parents are absolutely to blame. Totally aside, I was at the aquarium like 2 years ago, I remember, and there was a kid that was like 5 that was so overweight that it was genuinely causing everyone to turn their head. It was like the fattest kid I've ever seen in my life at that age. And that is like, you go, okay, well, clearly someone needs to intervene. Unfortunately, the systems in this country, so far as I'm aware, are not very good when they do intervene. But I digress. Big John was like a Samoan guy or a Hawaiian dude. He was something like that. And I remember he had blonde flip tips. This was like 2008, and his system was very good. It was Ocean's 11, but it was Ocean's 1,100 pounds. That's the joke I came up with for that. You're welcome. He was a guy so the camp had very high walls, and obviously it was relatively well secured. It's a bunch of kids. It was upstate in the woods or whatever, but the entryway into the camp was very well guarded, and they checked what you brought into the camp. And towards the back end of the camp, the walls would sort of slope downward. So he would have one counselor that was like communicating with the front, and he would come in through that way if he had a guy at the front, or he would have to make sure the like guy that like drove around the grounds was the right guy, and that guy would take him to the back, and he would literally in a plastic bag lob a bag full of McDonald's cheeseburgers over the fence, and then they would be sold. It's completely true. It's I remember I found out about it because my bunk was like the cool bunk, not because I was there, although it probably helped. And so the counselors and the kids in my bunk were probably a little bit more open with one another. I remember this is how crazy they were about food at this place. Understandably, I guess, was we would get like a snack of like a little bag of baked Lay's potato chips, and one of the counselors gave us Tabasco to put on it, and that was like considered crazy. It was like he might as well have been giving us hard drugs. I remember him distinctly being like, "Don't tell nobody. Don't let anybody know what I just did." And it was very serious. And that slowly leaned into, oh, it's clear he's like eating a candy bar, and where did the candy bar come from? I mean, this is completely insane. But it's true. This is how it was like this is how it was managed. They were I want to say the average counselor, by the way, was like 22. Now, when I think about it, they were probably in their early 20s. When I was that, I felt like they were 100 years old, but that's just the way time works, I guess. But so the way they would do this is they would test if a kid was cool by starting with Tabasco and the chips, and that would slowly lead into like, hey man, like yeah, I got like yeah, I mean I'm a counselor. I have to eat a little bit more calories than you. I'm older than you. And then they would eat in front of you, and they weren't supposed to do that either. All this stuff was very strictly adhered to. As an aside, like to break away from the story, it was effective in its way, and the nutritionists that were at war with the way the camp was held, the point that they were trying to make was this stuff isn't going to follow them home, which is true. My I distinctly remember being told the average camper was there the year before and the year before that. Or in other words, every camper that went there would inevitably come back as many times as they were financially capable of. And this camp was incredibly expensive. I mean, for me, it was like, it might be the most money ever spent on me in my entire childhood, ever. And you lose in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you lose like 15, 20 pounds. You drop weight really fast. Obviously, you're not eating at all compared to whatever your home situation is. But then they spit you right back out, which again, what more can they do? They can't change your parents, or they can't change your environment or your instincts. But anyway, that was the battle. So there were some people that were giving kids extra food because it was altruistic, and there was like an infighting go on how things should be run. And then there were other people like John who understood that the average camper that was there often, which also built trust, right? Like a camper that's been there 3 times, you've kind of known them as they grow up. They were inordinately wealthy and probably had access to money, and that's true. There was always rumors of like some kids would like show up on helicopters. That sounds fake now that I say it out loud, but the average camper was well into the upper middle class, if not way beyond it. So the way John would distribute the hamburgers, so he'd find out if you were chill. You start with Tabasco, you move on to snacks, to, oh, I gotta eat a little bit more calories than you, and you want a little bit, you want this. And then when it came to money being exchanged, my memory is very distinctly that there was like a bunk drawer full of things that were kind of like, in a movie in the 90s, a kid like opens a drawer and there's just a bunch of cool shit in it. He opens up and it's like a pocket knife and like a $5 bill, and that's like where he keeps his special stuff. I remember the bunk having like a special stuff drawer that the counselor was in control of, and that's where you would exchange money for things. But I don't understand how kids were getting money. That's what I don't understand. And in my head, I'm like, I remember one kid literally knew his entire debit and credit, like the card number for his parents off the top of his head, because there was like a computer class and we were all signing up for Facebook, and he wanted to use his credit card to like buy World of Warcraft stuff, and we were talking about Facebook. I don't know, but these memories are very vague in my head. But but a guy was selling cheeseburgers to kids. I mean, I have to explain that this happened. This was real. And he did get caught while I was there. He got caught and he was very unceremoniously fired, obviously. And, but it didn't end. The food, like the shenanigans around food didn't end. And I guess if you treat anything like a drug, which food is a drug for some people, and anything you criminalize, the things that form around that criminalization will replicate real life like criminalized things. So if you turn food into like a high grade narcotic, people will begin to behave as though it's a narcotic, and people will find a way to use it and find it and deal it and sell it. And it's just one of the strangest things I remember, and it's one of the funny. It remains to me one of the funniest things you could possibly do is smuggle cheeseburgers and sell them to fat kids. The food there was atrocious, obviously. I mean, you imagine that it's relatively difficult to make like delicious 1,200 calorie meals, relatively. Now imagine that, but at scale, right? Like a cafeteria is making 1,200 calorie meals. So it was, I very vaguely remember sometimes you would get like a little bun of bread, and that was the stuff. And even in the cafeteria, there would be certain counselors that would let you get up twice for food if you kind of were chill with one another, because the lunch people are just serving stuff kind of behind like a little barrier. And sometimes they'd let you do it. And part of it is because I think that wasn't financial. That is, I think they just felt bad. They just felt bad for these like fat kids that were hungry all the time. I'm trying to think if there was anything else anything funnier than a fat guy who like developed a scheme to sell cheeseburgers to rich fat kids. That's got to be it. There's no way. There were a lot of weird things that happened at fat camp, man. The concept in and of itself is like very of its time. Now a fat camp would be like a Jocko Willink, how to discipline yourself, like man's man camp, or it would be the other end of the spectrum where it would be all about like positivity and nothing would get done. So it's going to be one of those two extremes. The idea of like having this thing where it's like we go to summer camp but we get thinner, or it's just for fat kids. I don't know how well that holds up like in a contemporary setting. I'm sure there are many fat camps still. They must be nightmares now. They must be absolute nightmares. You need a guy named John to sell fat kids cheeseburgers. Is that where I'm coming out on this? On his side? I didn't plan for this. I'm not on John's side. No, he was selling the burgers. That's not right. I couldn't have bought one. I couldn't buy one. I didn't have money. I lost weight. I lost like 20 pounds. I went home. I looked great. I tried real hard. I remember distinctively thinking like, so I guess the biggest benefit of fat camp was I realized I could lose weight, right? Like, because if all of your memories consist of periods of time when you are super fat, like you were super fat when you were 7, super fat, like the moment you were conscious, you became conscious, and then inevitably you realized you were fat, right? You kind of reach it around 12 or something. You'll reach a point where like you're not even sure if it's literally possible to lose weight. You feel like that isn't even it just feels you have to have evidence, right? So the one thing I remember camp did give me was like this idea that I could get thinner, because I did. Like I succeeded in losing weight. Granted, it was within this extremely contained environment, right? I went for a couple weeks. It was fun enough. I didn't have a lot of like Disney Channel or X-rated, on the other end of the spectrum, camp experiences. It was fun. I remember having some fun, but I also remember just being like, this sucks. I'm hungry and I have to like run around all day. It was a nightmare in that regard. But I enjoyed the social aspect of it. Like I got to socialize, but I never like really went extra far into like anything in life. I enjoy socializing, but I don't want to be a part of a club. You know what I mean? I don't want to join a group. That's like nothing makes me more uncomfortable than the idea of like sharing an extracurricular. Like I don't want to be in a group with like 6 people where we all like the same thing. That makes me very uncomfortable. All right. In the next segment, I get a little mean. I'm doing this preemptively. This is what you have to deal with. I'm funny. I like to be funny. I don't take most things seriously, and I have very strong opinions. I don't like upsetting anyone. That's not something I enjoy. However, when I see something silly, I'm going to laugh at it. My issue with the thing I approach in the next video, it's a little sloppy. I don't nail my points, but the joke is there. Let me also get out of the way that my issue with this type of thing is not the people that want it or need it in their mind. It is that what this type of thing is effectively turning a overweight and mentally unwell person into a consumer demographic. I don't want to pretend like that gives me some sort of moral high ground, but if you are otherwise offended by the following segment, perhaps that little insinuation will, offer a bit of a bulwark for me. Otherwise, I don't care. It's funny. Boys, girls, subscribers, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna do my first react I've ever done on the channel. I went to Google, and after I was talking about, I don't think that there's like contemporary fat camps, I immediately had to Google it, and the first thing that came up, hold up. The first thing that came up when I looked it up, I gotta make sure I'm not like doxing myself somehow. The first thing that came up was fat camp retreat. All right. We're gonna get into the woods here. You belong here. That's a problem. I don't want to belong here. It's a fat camp. All right. So, whoa, the letters are all big and bulbousy, right? Because it's like fat people, the fat words. So you got fat words for fat people. Okay, a little on the nose. And then we got here. Now we're talking. So something's going on. I thought this was, up until here, I thought this was directed at children. Okay? But then you get here. And this is many large ladies behind a white sheet. And then, what is this banner? Fat girl flow, good bodies, fat girl flow, good bodies. Okay. And then you get to this. This is their call to action. This is a call to action. A big old fuck you to the fat camps of our youth. In the 80s, 90s, befores and afters, I don't know what this means. Before and after the 80s and 90s? That's obnoxious. We have been plagued with the message of shrinking ourselves physically, emotionally, etc. What's the etc.? Is it spiritually? In what way have you been asked to spiritually shrink yourself? If you could define for me in plain terms how you've been shrunken spiritually, I will accept what you're saying. Shrinking ourselves physically, the message of shrinking ourselves physically, not like this way. It was a very distinct kind of request, and it's to not be overweight. Emotionally, I don't understand this either. I think that what we're getting at here with the emotional is people aren't allowed to be sad, or people aren't allowed to express how difficult it is to be fat, or how unfair it is to. I don't know what we're getting at here. I'm gonna keep it real, but I do think generally, when people say things like this, they're really just saying, I don't like that. I don't feel good when people say certain things. That's you should be able to figure out on your own why that's a bit ridiculous. To fit the comfort of other folks. This is also, I'm not entirely sure how to translate this either. In the 80s and 90s, before and afters, we've been plagued with the message of shrinking ourselves physically, emotionally to fit the comfort of other folks. They're saying we're like lepers. We're like lepers, us biggins. Biggin is the funniest thing you can call a fat person, by the way. So us biggins are like lepers, and we've been put into this place where people are so mean. Finally, here's a place where you don't have to do that. What do you mean we don't have to do that? Oh, you don't have to fit the comfort of other folks by shrinking yourself physically and emotionally. Although it was dated up here, so this is a little confused. The timing is a little off for the way these sentences interact with each other. You can just live. Well, so what happens there is the question. Fat camp is for you if you want to be around people with bodies that look like yours. Very weird thing to want, by the way. As a rule, if you only want to be around people that are like you, something's going on. Traditionally, you would call that maybe vanity, egoism, one way or the other. The idea is to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Enjoy the pool, love laughing, and make some of the best friends a camper could ever have. This is aimed at adults. This is aimed at adult people that legally have obligations. Okay, what do we got here? Sponsors. We got good sponsors. Mega Babe, Classic, Tina, Understood, Squishington's Candy. Yeah. There aren't nearly enough food sponsors here. Oh, this is becoming mean. Oh my god. Am I going to lose what little subscribers I have for revealing the fact that I think this is like absurd? Look, I don't know what to tell you. If you need to contain yourself to an environment full of people that are identical to you in order to feel comfortable, in order to function or socialize or adhere yourself to some sort of like group form of like social behavior, I think that you have a lot of things to figure out. A lot. And maybe even the least of which is losing weight, although it's very clear that you're obsessed with the fact that you're overweight, which is nobody's fault but your own. That's you know, I wonder if the camp's about that. No. So I can't really do anything else here, but this is Fat Camp now. So I was wrong. I thought Fat Camp was going to be like, you know, a military Jocko Willink tough guy camp where, you know, they wake you up at 3 a.m. and make you carry a rucksack and like you think about how much your dad never hugged you or whatever it is they do over there. See, I get it. I give it to people on all sides. Okay, let that be abundantly clear. Or I thought it was going to be like, hey, this is like all about positivity and spirituality and like accepting yourself, but this is sort of just like a weird tongue-in-cheek. It's adversarial by its nature, which is automatically strange. It should be strange to a functioning adult. How much are the tickets? What are we talking here? I don't want to show people's faces. It's too mean. I do have a limit. Hold on. Come on now. Don't do this to me. How much is a ticket? Oh, I can get a scholarship. I'm getting myself a scholarship. Whoa. Okay. Okay, now we're talking. King bed in shared room Fat Camp. $2,200 for 3 nights. Brother. Oh, brother. I think I'm seeing the business end of this. I might get in on this. Who wants to invest in this with me? This is so crazy. This is one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. Hold on. Dude, I'm freaking out. You thought this was going to be a normal video. Turns out I'm a real YouTuber. I'm rolling with it. This ticket is per person. And by the way, you know, it doesn't matter how big you are, you count as one person. So that's another positive thing they do here. Is that even a good joke? I don't know. All meals are included. They fucking better be, buddy. You don't want to upset these people. A mini photography session. That's rad. Fat body conscious yoga. I cannot begin to tell you what this means. I'm assuming it's yoga that's a bit easier. I don't know how else anyone could ever translate this. And again, why condescend to yourself this much? This is self-hatred disguised as self-love. I don't know how else to put it. This will not end well for you. Crafts. Crafts, the escape of all non-artists. All great simple-minded people fall into this odd category. They start making bracelets. People love to, they take beads, and they take beads and they make a circle with the beads. I'm going to lose subscribers, I think. New this year, self-care day. Isn't every day self-care day if you're spending $2,200? If you're spending $2,200 a night, every day is a self-care day. And not only is every day a self-care day, but a swag bag filled with the best goodies, which, I mean, I'm trying so hard not. This is the nicest I can be, by the way. I'm being like, I'm chill right now. The best goodies. Is it food? Is it a George Foreman grill? These are weak. I'm weak, dude. I know. I suck. And you need to provide the COVID test. I'm going to cut this part out. All right. I don't know. I can't go anywhere with this without turning the channel into me being completely cruel to everyone. So I got to get out of here. We got to stop. You're welcome, guys. This is me going truly off the cuff and saying some things. Look, I know I'm mean, okay? I'm a lot of people will consider what I've just done mean. But in my defense, I thought I was going to find children trying to improve their lives. Instead, I found arrested development obese people that are effectively spending incredible amounts of money in order to find some weird adversarial way of like taking back something. Here's something that people need to accept, especially millennials and stuff like that. You can't get it back. Can't get it back. Can't get your childhood back. You can't take away the mean words. You can't take away the bad things. They happened. They're there. It happened forever. Sorry. You do not get to redo your childhood. You do not get to redo the bad times. What you must do is progress as an individual so that those times are the past. You see, for an ordinary person, for example, Disney World is very intriguing when you're a child, but then you grow older and your interests expand because your knowledge of things ideally multiplies as you experience the world. You become interested in more complex ideas and concepts than a mouse with big ears. However, if through a series of unfortunate circumstances you find yourself going to Disney World every year and you're 35 years old, or you find yourself spending almost $3,000 to spend 3 days amongst other people that are also enormous, if that's how you have decided to live out your life, it appears you're trying to reclaim something that you cannot reclaim. And I believe that this is a form of incredibly, a sort of modern Epicurean escapism for people that are breathing out of a tube. I should probably stop. All right. Well, so today, Brendan shows his true colors by making some funnies. I'm sorry, all right? It's, it is what it is, and I be doing what I do. And that's that. I'll do the thumbnail now. Look, I didn't know this was going to happen. Everyone's going to be so pissed. I don't know. Look, I believe in body positivity. It's called losing the amount of weight that you're overweight because you deserve to, like, not die young. Like, I don't want to die now. That's as positive as it gets. That's it. That's it. And all the other things, the social and the pressure from this and that, you're internalizing those things. There are a great deal of things that will always feel like they are against you, and there are a great deal of things that will always be sort of working for you. And like, it's just, I don't want to go on like this forever. Thumbnail time. Guys, like, comment, and subscribe. Who knew this was going to happen? Certainly I didn't. I'll see you at camp.